Welcome everyone to episode 26 of the World Stone Keep. We're back to our usual business for this show, going to be closing out the Black Road for the lore section, as well as closing out Diablo 2 Act 3 for our Diablo 2 section. Once we finish with those, we'll move on to some news covering the Rune system, which we haven't talked about yet, I don't believe, though we may have mentioned it in the last show, I'm not sure. And Diablo for the PS3, and the latest from the 1 millionth like on the Facebook page. I am Joe, your host, and joining me on the show, per usual, are Jordan and Ken. But wait, where's Dan? Dan's busy at the moment, and he should show up during the recording sometime later. So, say hello, Jordan and Ken.
Hello.
Hello, Jordan and Ken.
Alright, let's get into some lore. What do we have this week, Jordan?
Well, right here we have the end of the Black Road, and we've got a lot of ground to cover, so we're going to try and touch on each little bit as we go along. Last we left off, Lord Darkulin had been corrupted by the Black Road, and you got to see a very in-depth look at all that sort of thing, and basically Derek and the group of mercenaries, as it were, that are actually demon hunters, are in search of the sword, and in this one they actually do obtain it. Now, the interesting thing here is that the guy that is leading the group, as it were, Tamaris, is, kind of a sage-like quality to him, and he's been through hell and back himself, as it were, with his own personal history. And so he's got a major vendetta against demons. And as this progresses on, he knows exactly where to go based on his research. He's constantly reading different things and trying to get a handle of what's going on the grander scale. He knows that there's actually a guardian appointed to the sword, someone who watches over it, even though they're not able to use it themselves. And it's passed from grandfather to grandson. It always skips a generation for some reason. And so they head out to kind of a remote part of the country to go retrieve that. And, it's just kind of a nice, quaint setup. They have their mercenary group out there doing their thing. And the entire time, Cabraxis is actually tracking them. And he's having a conversation with Cholik about all this, and he tells him that he's using the Lezanti. And the Lezanti are a very unique thing that obviously doesn't exist within the regular world. And Cholik, kind of sparks some memories like, Lezanti, is he serious? I've only heard about those. And apparently what they are, they're created by blending of a human female's corpse, a freshly slain wolf, and a lizard, creating a fast and ferocious chimera that possessed superhuman cunning, partially upright physique, and an ability to take a lot of damage and regrow limb replacements after amputation.
Oh,
so, what the deuce?
Exactly. How'd you like to see these in the game, right?
Damn, or at least a picture.
Yeah, at least
somebody with drawing skills draw one of those. I want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, whoever has the best one, we should post it.
Definitely. Or maybe we'll give you a prize or something. I don't know. You could draw something cool.
Essentially, Cabraxis makes a small army of these things to go after them. I don't have the exact number of them, but they greatly outnumber the group. Like probably, I don't know, 10 to 1 at least. So
must be easy to find female corpses and especially slain wolves.
It's much easier to make them.
That's true.
Yeah, there are a lot of creepy things that happen within the book. Like in certain parts, you understand that the church is healing folks, right, or restoring youth to old people. And what they're not aware of is that if Cabraxis is restoring the youth to an old person, it's because he was actually snatching up orphans and stealing the years from them.
Oh.
So it's like, there are some kids snatch.
Damn.
Well, they're orphans. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, about all that. So a lot of crazy stuff really happens within the books. And so they go into this sub-chamber, Derek and Tamaris and essentially this old man who is watching over it and training his grandson. And there's a body actually holding the sword on the other side of the secret chamber. And none of them are able to actually get all that close to the sword. Like, it will literally repel you if you're not supposed to be there. And so the sage's greatest hope, of course, is that Derek can do it. So Derek goes up and he hits with the same resistance as the others, and he just keeps trying, and they're going, I guess it's just not meant to be. I guess we'll figure something else out. And he's like, no, I'm doing this. And he just keeps pushing, and he can literally feel pain shooting up his arm as though the flesh is going to peel back from the bones in his fingers. You know, just crazy searing effects. And he's going, "Look, guy, you know, I don't want to tell you what to do, but it doesn't look like this is going to work out. You should just stop." He's like, "No," and he just starts yelling at him. And the whole time in the back of his mind, he's hearing his father's voice, you know, essentially telling him he's worthless and et cetera, et cetera. And he doesn't want to imagine. Right, he doesn't want to imagine what it would be like if he's come all this way and to no avail. You know, basically, what do I do after this if this fails?
Mm-hmm.
And the strangest thing happens. All of a sudden, he hears Matt's voice in his head, and he says, "Take up."
Damon.
He hears his voice and he says, "Take up the sword, Skipper." And he doesn't believe it. He's like, "What does that mean?" You know, is he here? He looks around and he actually manages to get close enough to the sword to pick it up.
Ooh.
And they're like, he did do it. That's weird, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't think he was going to. So now, of course, he's got all these doubts going on about why he wasn't at first able to and now is. And that's actually explained slightly later. And by this point, you hear the mercenaries going off, and the Lezanti are actually attacking outside. And so you have this huge fight going on between all of the surviving demon hunters that are within the group. And of course, Tamaris is no slouch himself. He's actually doing, you know, the mage quality of all this. Freezing groups of them, burning them, you know, just massive AoE effects.
Right.
But, you know, like I say, there's a pretty big army out there. And when you're following Derek, it's very interesting. One thing that we should mention about the sword itself, Storm Fury, who actually drove Cabraxus out of the world before, when he was at that time known as Ice Claw, and he essentially ruled over a large section of the barbarian tribes and was driven back by Storm Fury. Well, this thing looks like you know, a nice long two-handed sword, but it looks very plain. There are no ornate decorations at all. If you just saw it, you'd think, oh, it's a serviceable sword, but there's nothing special about it. And when Derek was looking at it, he's going, "What's up with this, guys?" And he's like, well, think about it, dude. If you were going along with this super awesome sword, would you want everyone and their mother trying to steal it? It's like, well, I guess you have a point there.
Yeah.
That would get kind of annoying.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a very plain Jane looking thing, but again, it has this incredible power. One point, you know, the first thing that he runs into literally lops off its head and shoulder in one swipe, just
damn,
cuts it aside. And it has a lot of power within it. He goes and stabs another one and goes to kick off the body, and before he has time to, it bursts into blue flames and just incinerates it.
Rad.
So, you know, pretty awesome thing to have in a pinch, I would say.
Heck yeah.
Like I say, they're probably outnumbered 10-1, and the actual number of people there, 7 died, 2 were crippled, and 17 remain. So, gives you an idea of just how many we're talking about.
Damn.
And you know, so that's the remaining group after the attack.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from here, the other thing that he figured out he could do in the midst of all this, he could literally throw the sword, and he did this to save Tamaris. Threw the sword at a Lezanti, you know, it burst into blue flames, and he actually recalled it with his hand from a distance.
Oh.
So, kind of a cool throw off from Star Wars, I guess. It's like, yeah, I can do this. It's mine now, which is especially odd since the sword initially rejected him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from here it goes back into Bramwell, the city which actually contains Cabraxus' church, and there are constant muggings going on. You know, everywhere's kind of a dark alley because there's so many pilgrims traveling to this place that it just becomes like, you know, a ghetto everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
The group is very much whittled down now. They are haunted by nightmares. They're constantly hunted by all of the people who guard on the outskirts of the church. And one of them actually tells a story about being possessed by an enchanted weapon that essentially made him do terrible things. So he's being haunted even by those memories. And it kind of plants a negative seed in Derek's mind because he starts to wonder if the same thing could eventually happen to him.
Mm-hmm.
Tamaris comes back and lays out an outline for the plan of attack. When the church expanded as quickly as it did, there was this offshoot, this section built right into the side of the river with these huge pillars that would actually break directly into the sewer system if there was substantial damage. So they hijacked this very small vessel out in the port that's filled with whale oil. They, have no trouble dispatching the people that are on it. Just, pretty much kicked them off and
Right.
out into the water. And, when they started to come back, some of them were holding bows and arrows and like, yeah, you just keep swimming the other way. And Tamaris summons up this really powerful wind to actually cause the boat to head upstream so that they could collide it into that particular weakened section. And the whole time they're getting fired upon, a shaft actually hits Derek and some of the other members. His was actually in the side. And they have to figure out exactly where to hit it precisely, otherwise it won't work. And Matt's voice comes into his head again and explains to him that if he calls out its name, he can utilize its power and essentially use it as a light to see exactly where to strike.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these torches
Cheating.
and everything else they'd throw, yeah, they'd completely failed in all their other attempts. It's like, yeah, torches aren't going to do us jack right now. Even with, and especially since the boat itself is on fire, with all these flames starting to billow up and everything, it's kind of hard to see anyway. So managed to hit the thing and jump ship and essentially get into the sewer system from there and really weaken the pillars that are holding it and all that kind of stuff. The thing that happens within the sewer system is there are just tons and tons of these sewer rats that, for whatever reason, initially start attacking them. And then it becomes clear after they kill off these rats that they were doing it for a particular purpose. This was all orchestrated by Cabraxis, and all of these rat skeletons and bones and everything formed this bone golem with huge hammer-like hands with spikes coming out of them. Just, not the sort of thing you could possibly defeat by sheer force alone.
Right.
And
awesome.
Of course, it pretty much falls back on the sword to defeat it. And you see that kind of echo on throughout the thing to some degree. But the interesting part here that kind of gets a throwback to the beginning story is that basically everything happens for a reason. And whenever a demon enters the world, the seeds to their own defeat are sown.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever is necessary to take them down is provided in some way. You just have to look for them.
Right.
So that's kind of a recurrent theme within the story. And the person who actually helps them out of this dire situation, they've got guards swarming in on different sections, both behind them and ahead of them and all that. A secret passage above them opens up at this dead end. And who do you think saves them?
No idea.
Remember
Someone evil.
Absolutely. Remember the
Nice.
assassin who shot Cholik in the chest? Had all these burns and whatnot?
Nope.
Vaguely.
Well, it actually tells you who that was and who it is right now. It's Ryven, the pirate captain from the very beginning of the story who got taken out right off the bat.
Oh.
Remember, Cabraxis pretty much reduced him to nothing with flames in the very beginning, and just torched the whole upper half of his body. What they didn't tell you in the beginning was that when Cabraxis cast the spell to summon up all the corpses to chase after them, he unwittingly summoned up Rythen, and for whatever reason, he still had his free will.
Oops.
Oh, that's funny.
So he hadn't been able to die or move on or do any of that in the same way that Matt hadn't been able to move on. He was still wandering the plains as a ghost in the in-between zones and couldn't find rest until Cabraxis was defeated. So you've got basically two people caught in limbo in the midst of all this. And as they're going along, it actually explains that this was all part of an earlier prophecy. One lost in death, one lost in life, and one lost in himself. One trapped in the past, one trapped in the present, and one trapped in the future. One will lift the sword, one will provide the way, and one will face the demon. So the reason why Derek couldn't actually lift the sword was because the sword wouldn't let him. It wasn't until Matt arrived that it let.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it kind of does a throwback effect, and it tells you that all these different things all do in fact tie together when at first they seemed very random.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately following that, Cholik is giving the sermon, trying not to show any fear or anything like that. And Rythan is actually guiding them through the secret tunnel system all the way up so that they could attack him from behind.
Mm-hmm.
And Rythan is riding on the giant stone snake, so you can imagine how problematic this whole scenario is. And it's actually pretty cool because you get some of these detailed descriptions, like Tamaris is actually summoning up a blizzard, and whenever the snowflakes hit something or someone, it literally will burn their skin off.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so Blizzard gets a very cool rep within the story. You're like, oh, that would suck.
Yeah.
You're not even talking about just freezing people. You're talking, serious, painful damage right there.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah. So Derek actually manages to leap onto the snake, slay Cholik in the process, and ends up being swallowed by the snake and falls into the black road, and he's got no idea what's really going on. And Matt the whole time is talking to him and telling him that the sword can actually protect him from the fall. And when he does actually land, he smells these effects from his memories. He smells the old dank stable when he was a child, and he looks around and he is a child.
Ooh.
And all of these effects as though he were still living at home with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't have any particular way of remembering other than Matt telling him. All of his current memories start to fade into, the background.
Mm-hmm.
And he has this noose around that he was actually tying. This was part of his memory. It's just what Cabraxis was doing was altering the end result. What actually happened with Derek when he was a child was he tied his noose, had it all set up, and his friend Matt had taken it away from him and said, look, this isn't the way, we'll find something else. And as he was remembering it here, it was basically his father hoisting him up by it. And once he finally managed to break the illusion of all that was actually going on, he's fighting the demon, gets the upper hand, and Cabraxis is like, look, there's going to be a price to pay if you kill me. You don't want to do this. And he says, whatever, I'll pay it. He stabs him.
Ooh.
And he, chops off his head.
Mm-hmm.
And carries it out into the temple to show all the believers what they were actually worshiping. And there are all these riots that start to break out and all this other thing. And they're kind of wondering, oh, this is bad. Are we going to make it out of here alive anyway? All these people going around. It's like, this just keeps getting worse, doesn't it? And here's the funny thing. He's up on the roof and he's talking to Tamaris, who's, saying, well, we're going to head on out to find more demons to kill. You want to come with me? He's like, no. At no point was I ever really part of your group, and none of your people really trust me. So he's having this dialogue about it, and he says, well, let me show you something. And he tosses the sword aside, and you look at his hand and it warps into that demonic claw that Cabraxis had. It's like, oh, what's going on there? He takes the sword back, and it's like, okay, it goes back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And he explains to him that when it all went down, he actually absorbed Cabraxis into his body.
Weird.
Right. And so this was the curse that Cabraxis was talking about. But here's the weird thing. There's a twist to it.
Oh no, M. Night Shyamalan.
Nice. The twist to it is that
It's the plants the whole time.
when he absorbed Cabraxis into his mind, as it were, and all this, he actually also absorbed his power, and he could heal people. In fact, right there, he healed Tamaris on the spot.
Oh, nice.
And he explained to him whenever he used the gift, he could hear the demon inside of his head just kind of clawing around.
Oh. Does he get stronger every time he uses the power? I would imagine.
He kind of wonders if that's the case. he wonders if Stormfury will just keep the whole thing in line. Should he use this gift or should he not? And when he's getting on the boats to kind of sail away, he sees this girl fall from the gangplank and literally get crunched in between the ship and the dock.
Oh
And
God.
they pull the little girl up, and she's dying, and there's no healer that could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's looking at this for a moment, going, "Was this an accident? Did Cabraxis arrange this to make me heal this girl?" And so all these thoughts are going on in his head, like, what do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
And he actually goes over and completely restores the little girl. And all the people around are like, "Oh no, he must be evil or something." And of course, the mother defends him and kind of disperses the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was doing it, he could actually hear Cabraxis screaming in his head.
Oh.
And so you're left with this ending where Derek is the wounded healer who can do these incredible, amazing things, but you're not really sure what the cost is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end of the Black Road.
Oh.
Oh, snap.
And does the next book pick up with the same dude?
Oh, no. The only ones that are
different
actually
story.
interconnected, the first 3 books, the Sin Wars, and then the next 2 books are actually slightly interconnected. The next book, which is, I'd say most people's favorite, is The Kingdom of Shadow. And then following that, The Moon of the Spider.
Do we have the Kingdom of Shadow next?
Yes.
Cool. And we'll get into that in show 27. And coming up next, we'll be talking about Diablo 2 Act 3. Let's get into some Act 3 business. Right now, we're just going to close it out, go over what we didn't go over, and that was the quest line and NPCs. So the quest line, the first quest you get is the Golden Bird. And this one, as we mentioned before in a previous show, nobody gives it to you. You just kill the first unique monster you come across, and he drops the Jade figurine, I believe.
That's right.
And then, yeah, you go over to, what's his face, Melshif?
Meshif.
And trade him that for the Golden Bird. And you bring that to Alcor, which is like the local alchemist in the village. And he turns it into a potion that gives you like 20 points to life.
Yeah, and he's kind of an interesting character. He's all, "Why won't you people leave me alone?"
Yeah, he's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Damn it. Wish you people would just leave me alone.
From the ashes of Goyle, I've mixed for you a potion.
I don't know why this dude sounds Indian while he's in the costume. No one else does. It's just him.
He's some crazy old wandering man. Decides to put roots in a swamp. This place seems homely.
Oh.
Some of the people look there pretty homely, I would say.
Then again, he is like an alchemist, so I imagine you can find some weird stuff in the jungle.
I think the weird thing is
Oceans
that
and stuff.
everyone in there kind of has their own theme. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Alcor is the crazy alchemist who, has his very odd accent. Ormus doesn't talk in first person. He refers to everything in third person.
You now speak to Ormus.
You can ask Ormus for his advice or follow your own. You're like, okay, Ormus, whatever you say. I think Rotley the blacksmith is probably the most normal of the bunch. He's not all like, hey, you really don't know where I'm coming from, do you? Like, no, I don't.
Yeah, and he's the first one you run into in town. He's like waiting at the docks for you to show up. I imagine he's like the leader of the village. That's what I got.
Yeah, either him or possibly Ormus, I don't know. A lot of times it gets kind of convoluted as far as the roles being played, just like in the Sisters of the Sightless Eye in Act 1, you had the spiritual leader and then you had the military leader.
Mm-hmm.
So, things kind of subdivide to some degree. Ormus, when you get that later quest for the Gibbon, is largely in charge of protecting the whole thing with magic.
Yep, and the Gidbin quest is the second one you get. Blade of the Old Religion.
Oh, yeah.
And what's that purpose? Doesn't it like protect the little village?
Right. And when you first give it to him, he walks over to this little pedestal altar type thing, and it forms this weird shimmering blue orb.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, the docks are protected now. It's like, huh, okay. Whatever you say, Ormus.
I mean, nothing was trying to attack it before, but if it makes you feel better, sleep better at night. That's cool.
And also, this is a funny thing that happens too. When you first complete the the Gidbin quest, you also get Ashira, the mercenary um, person who's in charge of the Iron Wolves, the sorcerers from or Diablo 1, basically.
She's hot.
Yeah, she is pretty hot. She's all, I will kill you if I need to. She's kind of badass muscle.
Got a snake around
Am-
her neck
yeah,
in a
she's all
bikini.
Amazonian. I will rule with an iron fist kind of deal.
Yeah, such
But
beautiful pixels.
here's the strange thing to me. She offers you the service of some of her guys for free once you complete that quest, but by this point you've already hired on someone from Act 1 or Act 2, and you really don't get to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Because you've already got a mercenary. It's like, well, who thought up this quest line? This is such a ripoff. It's like, this doesn't even make sense. And then to top it off, the mercenaries that you can hire, they do elemental damage that you can't really up either with plus to skill items or with damaging items. You give him an awesome sword and shield, he still sucks. It's like,
Yeah.
what's going on here?
I liked the ice ones just because they put the slow effect, even though if they didn't do any damage.
And they can freeze at higher levels. They could freeze guys still. Those are the ones I used in single player the most because in groups of monsters, it was handy when they would freeze a bunch of them.
Well, it was actually that they did nothing but freezing spells. They did glacial spikes every now and then.
Yeah, glacial spikes, that's the one.
And then they did the lower cast of that's only single target.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Ice Bolt, it's Ice... What's the one in between those two? Ice Bolt.
Blast? I don't know.
Ice Blast, that's it. You're right. Ice Blast is just a slightly more powerful, different animation of Ice Bolt, and it just freezes a single target. And about every 3 to 4 shots, he'll shoot off a glacial spike.
Which was very handy in a pinch.
Right. If you got the other alternatives, you also had, of course, Fire and Lightning. He would either do Infernos and a Fireball every now and then, or he would do Charge Bolts or a Lightning Bolt periodically.
Glacial Spike, Ice Blast, and Frozen Armor.
Yeah.
That was for the cold dudes.
The only other person that's of particular interest in this act is one who actually disappears once you complete the last quest in Act 3.
Yep.
And it's an assassin named Natalia. And she has very intriguing dialogue. You can tell that she was put there for a reason to kind of create implications for the expansion, but you didn't know it at the time.
Oh.
Because not only does she go to, or talk about going to Act 5 even before that game comes out, she's also an assassin who, is an expansion.
Yay!
So you could tell that they planned all that out ahead of time.
Clever little D2 devs.
Indeed.
And she's got a set in the game, which I'm actually wearing part of right now.
Yeah,
Natalia's Odium.
I got the Grim Skull on my assassin. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I don't think I have that one. Yeah, I'm not.
I liked Natalia's because the effect faded your character when you had it all.
Yeah, it was cool. 4-piece set. Boots, helm, chest piece, and what was the other one? Oh, guitar.
Yeah, I think the weapon actually ignored target defense, isn't that right?
I don't remember, and I don't have it, so I can't tell you.
I used to have it back before the ladder reset, and the reason I really liked it was if you went like the blade traps with the blade furies that you could shoot out, they were really difficult to use oftentimes because if you went any other weapon than a fist weapon with fist mastery, you couldn't hit anything.
Really?
Yeah, because it was actually based on your attack rating. So if you had an awesome item that had ignore target defense, then you could actually get around that as long as they weren't bosses. So it created a kind of a problematic effect.
Interesting.
Yeah. See, this is the kind of thing I used to do with Diablo 2. I would make odd builds. I made an assassin with Fury, or Blade Furies, and then I would have like a big two-handed sword with, that rune word that would have ignore target defense and insta-cast static and chain lightning, That's sort of stuff that I did.
That's awesome. We actually got an email from someone to go into like more of our Diablo 2 builds, but we'll probably do that for a different show. I pretty much stuck to the standard because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just a silly little kid playing a fun video game. But anyways, the third quest you'll come to in Act 3 is Khalim's Will, and this is the first quest line. It's actually like a little mini quest line where you go and collect all the pieces to form Khalim's Will, which is the flail that you need to break open the wall that leads down to Mephisto.
Right. So the first part, you have to find the
Little pieces of Khalim. Was it his eye at first? I think it
right.
was his
The
eye.
first piece. The first piece is the eye, and that's in
Ugh, that was
the
such a
spider
pain.
cavern.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny thing was, if you went to the spider forest, you'd run into the arachnid lair first. A lot of times, then it'd be like, oh, this must
No.
be the place. No, it's not.
Nope.
No,
Actually, I
this
think
is-
I might have mentioned before in some of the non-English versions of the game, there's a problem with that because they don't have a different word for spider and arachnid.
So it's the same place.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
That sucks.
They probably
So I
just
guess
put
it would be like spider cavern and spider lair, right?
Yeah.
or yeah, you could just put this is Spider Cavern 1, this is Spider Cavern 2. You want to go to number 1.
The next piece you got to get is Khalim's brain,
Right.
and that's in the
And,
Flayer jungle. That's the eye, the brain, and then Khalim's heart, which you get in the sewers.
Right. And the sewers are the kind of the
Sewers.
craziest place in Act 3 because it basically encompasses 3 of those little mini zones all by
Oh,
itself.
God, I remember the
Huge.
sewers. Those places were the worst.
I mean, it is unimaginably huge. You're just like, wait, where am I going?
I totally forgot about the sewers. Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
massive, and there's like 4 entrances into them, and you keep coming out in new zones.
So
Right.
terrible.
Right, so the upper, middle, and lower Karast are all kind of interconnected by those sewer systems, and so you're just going along like, la la la, where... And the first time it's especially terrible because you're basically looking for this little switch that you have to throw to create the door to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you actually figure all this out, and you played through it before, you're actually going along looking for that special bat mobs that are down there that are
Gloom
always
bats.
right. They're always right next to it, and if you're not careful, especially in like hell mode, that freezing nova will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, this
Oh,
isn't so
man.
bad. Boom.
Forgot those dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always ran into the Stygian little buggers, little blow up
Oh, I
guys.
hate those guys.
You also run into greater mummies that will summon and resummon all the undead things down there, and makes it especially annoying. So you'll just be running along, and the way that the architecture is designed, you're constantly running into dead ends because of the little sewer things below you. Just little, they're basically puddles, but you
walls.
can't step under them or step over them. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like, why can't I just walk
Oh,
over
right.
this?
Yeah.
Apparently, unless you're a barb or a sorceress, you're just SOL here.
Thank you, leap attack. And teleport.
Or leap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
leap even.
It didn't take much. I mean, like I say, there's like, I'll just hop over this.
Last piece you gotta get is the flail, which you get in the Traving Cow by killing the council. You throw those all in the cube, combine them, makes Khalim's will, and you break open the door leading down to the Durns of Hate. But before you finish that, you gotta do... Well, you don't have to, but Lameson's Tomb,
Yeah,
which is the
that's
fourth quest.
it's a pretty awesome quest because when you're doing it, you basically run along again those 3 major sections, the upper, middle, and lower,
Mm-hmm.
and there are all these fake tombs, and they have names that suggest as such, but only one's real, and it's always architecturally designed the exact same way. It'll be exact same animation facing the exact same way, but the first time you're playing through it, you don't know this. So once you actually do figure out, it's very easy to find,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you're searching those 3 out.
Yeah.
First time, it sucks.
And Dan's here. What's up, Dan?
Not too much. A little bit rainy day, a little bit gloomy.
Oh, depressing. But anyways, we're just in the middle of the quest line for Act 3. We have come to the fifth quest, which is the Blackened Temple, and I don't remember this one. What do you do for this one? Is that the one where you just have to defeat the council members?
Right. Once you defeat the council members, they drop the flail, and that's pretty much it. The quest is completed once you kill one particular guy. It doesn't actually count them all as a group. It just technically counts one.
Oh, right. What's his name?
After a while, they all kind of blur together. This is Ishmael Vilehand. It's like, oh, is that any different from the guy right next to him? No.
Let's see, we got council member Galeb Flamefinger.
Right.
Let's see who's inside. I'm actually in Act 3 right now. Torque
am
Ice Fist, I think that's the one.
Right.
He's a bitch. And Ishmael Vilehand. And then there's a little altar where you kill him that you gotta crush like this glowing red orb, and then that opens the stairway down to the Durance of Hate. Which leads you to the final quest, which is the Guardian, and where you have to kill Mephisto.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting throwback to the really old lore as well, to that orb, the compelling orb that you have to smash, is also a play off of the later thing that they created in the old story, which was the kiss of Mephisto, that had the power to continuously resurrect the Morlu. And so these weird objects of power that Mephisto creates are always, pretty crazy for some reason.
Cool. So I guess that about does it for Act 3 then.
Yeah, one thing I would note though, remember we talked about Quest 4. Once you complete it, you get +5 stats you can spend wherever you want.
Oh, that's right. The book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone online just calls it the stat book.
Stat book.
But
it's fitting.
one thing that's interesting to note with Diablo 3 is that it doesn't sound like they'll have any quests that do that, either add plus to skills or plus to stats. Do you guys remember reading about that?
Well, they definitely
yeah,
can't
a
have
little
one that's plus the stats. Well, I guess they could, but nah.
I mean, I just remember reading something where they either directly said or implied that they wouldn't have anything that does anything like that in Diablo 3.
Huh.
For that.
Me neither.
And we saw there was the screenshot of the skill list. I believe, was it a wizard? And they were in their early 20s, and sort of if you count it up, yeah, it seems like, because that would be fairly late game by the time you're in your mid 20s, and counting up all of the stat points that they had put them basically at level. So it seems like there's no Den of Evil early quest. Hey, here's a free skill point.
Right.
Right, and it also would make sense from a logistical standpoint of saying, look, we don't want to have to balance out for extra skills that possibly someone might not get, or try to skip over, any number of different things.
Right.
So, in that respect, it would make perfect sense to forgo that. It didn't really kind of make sense in Diablo 2.
Yeah, it just gave you like extra work to do when you're making a new character. You're like, okay, let's go do these quests now and skip the other ones.
Not to mention you're this epically powerful hero that's doing things that no one else can, and this little NPC in town can just give you insight on how to make yourself really powerful. Like, oh, Akira is secretly a master barbarian, assassin.
I will bless you with an extra skill. Why only
Druid,
one?
sorceress,
More.
necromancer. You're like, oh, okay, I'm confused, but I'll
Been
take your
holding
word
out
for
on me. All right. Any comments, questions, concerns, something we missed in Act 3 that you want us to discuss? Just shoot it our way any way you can, and we'll bring it up in the next show. But for now, we're going to move on to news. So, Ken, what do we have for news this week?
This week, well, there's been a bunch of things. First, we finally hit 1 million likes on the Facebook group.
Sure did.
And the reward for that is wallpapers, which is consistent with what they did for the other Facebook pages.
Right.
Which I actually have the wizard one as my background right now.
Sick.
Nice.
This is all artwork we've seen before. They just put it in wallpaper form.
Yeah.
Released it, which caused a lot of controversy. People were like, oh, that sucks.
People were built up over, well, I mean, even I was pretty built up.
Yeah.
But I guess if I should have known if that's what they did for the other Facebook pages, well, that's pretty consistent for them to do that for the Diablo one.
Yeah.
But they did release a previously unseen image of, or drawing of Tyrael.
Right, by Brahm, the
which is not, it's not concept art. It's like, this is what he thinks guy looks
artistic
like.
interpretation for the Angel of
Justice.
Justice. That's right. It's a pretty cool
Yeah.
picture.
That was pretty sweet.
Yep.
And then we have here listed the rune system. Have we not talked about that announcement yet?
No, we didn't
No,
because we
not,
skipped
well,
it.
we glossed over it, but we haven't really dug into it.
Gone into depth.
Oh, man. Well then. Yeah.
All
the
right,
rune
so-
system.
First impressions when you saw it, all the videos and everything.
Well, I like the videos. Like, there was, like, Cluster Arrow, for one, with the Demon Hunter. That's
Dude,
a
that
new
was
skill.
awesome.
I'm pretty sure I haven't seen Cluster Arrow before.
Mm-hmm.
No, I hadn't seen it before either.
But I like, because I got a toy with, like, I think it was a couple of runes at last BlizzCon, and it was only, like, three of the characters that could even use them.
Mhm.
It's just sweet. And then them actually visually showing the difference between each rune and putting them in, and yeah, very well done. Very nice.
Dude, I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. What
That's
I was
yeah,
watching.
man.
I just started geeking out. I watched these videos like a dozen times in a row.
Yeah.
It's like, I
So
started
amazing.
salivating and just vibrating.
This is one of the most genius ideas I've ever seen in the game. Customizing your skills. Because this makes just like an infinite amount of possibilities for characters. I mean, nobody's going to have the exact same character in game
Right.
with all the
You
levels of
think about,
customization.
Let's see, what was it? You have 22 skills, 5 runes, end up at, 110? And then with that 110, you can mix and match them however you want. So
Yeah.
really, from my perspective, since I said I did a lot of odd builds in Diablo 2, I looked at this information and went, oh, what all can I do?
Will consume the
Well,
rest
you
of your
can't
life.
quite mix and match any way you want because of that 110. There is exclusion because
Right, you can only
each
put one
couplet
rune
of
on
you
one
can only have
skill at
one
a time.
instance of each couplet of 5.
Mhm.
It's still a
Still,
fairly
though.
large number, but
It's still way higher than it ever was in Diablo 2. Especially
Yes,
when
absolutely.
you consider how many wasted skills there were. I mean, again, and I've said this a million times, Inferno was such a disappointment. Arctic Blast was such a disappointment.
I think
Poison Dagger.
one of the biggest things that I really liked, like looking at the Ray of Frost, when they said sometimes it drastically changes, like the runes can drastically change what it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it became like an area of effect globe around her. Like it's
Dude,
not even
that
a
was
beam at
so
all
rad.
anymore. I like just the
Yeah.
animation too, how she's like floating, hair's
Yeah.
flail.
Billowing
Yeah.
cloak and everything. Oh, awesome.
Whenever someone asks me about it, I immediately tell them, if you watch nothing else, just watch the Ray of Frost one, because that
Yeah.
one will get you giddy. You're
Yeah.
just gonna be like, oh man, I want to play this right now.
What I think is also cool is not only does the animation change, like the colors or maybe the animation in general, but they also have a different sound effect for each rune, for each skill, which is insane.
Yeah, I
No,
was actually really impressed with that too.
with the sound change, my favorite has to be the golden rune in Sweeping Wind because it sounds like he's hitting them with a sack of money.
It sounds very peaceful. You're like, oh, that sounds wonderful, even though I'm just slaughtering you guys. And of course, I was looking at it going, ooh, this is another multi-stage one that I can mix and match with things like the exploding palm technique or the way of the 100 fists. I'm like, I can't wait to play
Yeah,
this.
which we haven't even seen yet. So they released 5 videos, one for each class, and one skill in particular for each class. For the Barbarian, it was Whirlwind. For the Monk, it was Sweeping Wind. For the Wizard, it was Ray of Frost. For the Demon Hunter, Cluster Arrow. And for the Witch Doctor, Acid Cloud, which is also awesome. I think I'm going to have to play a Witch Doctor as my first character.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that your final decision now, eh?
No, it could change. So far,
That
from what we
acid
see,
cloud
I'll
did look
just-
pretty cool.
Yeah, there's so many skills the Witch Doctor has that just has me cracking up. So I think I would have to go with Witch Doctor.
Actually, this video made me, I think for my Witch Doctor, I actually want to do a poison-based one.
Mm-hmm.
Like just all the The acid cloud looks so cool. A giant skull puking acid on things. That makes me laugh.
This is the weird thing to me, was that when I looked through the forums, this is the only skill that people complained about. I'm like, why are people complaining about this?
Yeah, what was going on with that?
Why?
They,
What are
they
they
said that
saying?
they kept saying that the head was not detailed or as detailed as things like the Horrify skill, and just nitpicking basically.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's just what I remember with the initial reactions. I don't know what all was said about it afterwards, but looking through it, that was the only skill people complained about, and I thought that was odd.
One thing that's really nice to see with the way that they've got them listed here is, if we think back originally when they announced the rune system, they were, what were they called? They were like the expansion rune and the like explosive rune. They had all of these names that were descriptive of what they were intended to do, and they moved away from that because they were like, well, we don't, not all skills are going to necessarily have
an
a
explosive
good
effect or
an
something.
unexplosive effect or something like that. So if we look at these, for the most part, we see a general theme, like the alabaster rune on 4 of these 5 adds some kind of control type effect, a stun, a confuse, daze,
Knockback.
slow, knockback, except for the acid cloud. And so there's kind of a case where we're looking at, it's like, all right, well, acid cloud is one of those skills where they couldn't necessarily thematically fit in explosion or control or whatever, maybe because the witch doctor already has a ton of those kind of things, so this wasn't really a place to add more to it. So really going away from the descriptive and towards the just vague, the color-based one it looks like it's worked out fairly well in that regard. You'll still be able to speak in general terms of like, oh yeah, use alabaster runes if you're focused on this, use crimson runes if you just want to blow stuff up real good.
You guys want to know something kind of sneaky that they did?
What?
In line with that? So you see, Witch Doctor was the only one that the alabaster didn't add crowd control. Golden Rune also reduces resource cost, but if you look at the Demon Hunter, it doesn't do that because they don't have the Demon Hunter resource yet.
Oh, sneaky.
It's still, however, the Golden Rune for Cluster Arrow is still sort of in line with the efficiency aspect of the Golden Rune in that it leeches health. So it's like, it increases durability. So it is still in line, even if it doesn't directly relate to their
oh, sure.
Their resource.
I just want to know what her resource is.
Yeah, it is sneaky that they managed to sort of sneak around and avoid telling us.
Maybe that's why they put Cluster Arrow out.
Yeah, instead of something else.
And that makes me curious about Acid Cloud, because the Golden Rune for it afflicts enemies with a disease instead of just the regular poison dot. So I'm wondering if the Witch Doctor has an interaction with diseases and their mana, if, diseases are basically a mana drain as it affects things, or if there's talents that tie into, not talents, traits that tie into that, or if this was just another place where they're like, you know what, Acid Cloud, we just can't shoehorn everything in, so
Right.
not going to try.
Well, you think about that previous comment by Bashiak way back when he was talking about building a barbarian that could just sustain fury throughout the entire process. It really makes you wonder just what you could do with things like the skills or the traits, the runes. Is it possible that you could just put the lowering cost in this, put this trait that generates more fury here, and then possibly have some kind of item type that steals it, and then just, go real crazy with the whirlwinds?
All those combining of different skills and items and runes, that's just making my head melt. That's so exciting.
Maybe we should actually mention the rune stones. And there's crimson, indigo, obsidian, golden, and alabaster. And each color corresponds to the name. What do you guys think of the new interface for them?
I like it.
Or the
I think
latest?
The latest one, I like it. I think it's really clean, really straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
At a quick glance, the icons are nice and big. They're fairly easy to tell apart. Every now and then I get mixed up about indigo and obsidian, but for the most part, it's like one glance you know what's with what.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't paid too terribly close attention to the UI because in the back of my mind I'm going, well, this might change again, But just based on what I've seen, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, this latest one seems pretty solid. I dig it. Now, these runes will also have different levels too, right? So do you think they'll have different animations for the higher level runes that you can put in? Or, stronger sound effects or whatnot?
Even if
I-
it's just something simple like that, yeah.
I'm
That'd
not
be fun,
sure
but I
if
don't
it's going to be like how much the rune level is going to affect the animation, or if it's just going to be like as the skill levels up, because that's kind of it's adjusting the animation based on the level of two different things at the same
Oh,
time.
right.
So, I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't, but it would make me think that if they do, the impact of any given rank gain or just jumping from one rune level to the next isn't going to be incredibly visible.
Mm-hmm.
Though if you put in a rank 1 and then a rank 7, it'd be day and night.
Right. Makes sense.
Right.
Gradual gradient change. And we'll have these. Do you want to go into depth of what they do, or we just want to have that shown on the video?
On
What they change?
how they look.
Well,
Or what
what
does
like
each
Crimson
rune-
does to Whirlwind and Indigo and Obsidian, all that. Nah, that'll take too much time. We'll just have it playing as we play the video for your convenience. What else we got? Is that all the news we got? No, we got something else.
Yeah, well, a couple other things. What's this Diablo for the PS3?
Oh yeah, there was
I know what
Yes.
this one is. This was Blizzard recently posted a job opening for a PS3 architecture specialist. The interesting thing about it is that it's not just a general position, it is specifically within the Diablo team.
right. Diablo 3
Oh, cool.
PS3.
So
Or
it
Diablo
might
for PS3.
Diablo for PS3. It might be a port, it might be another game, it might be a research position. There's a lot that we just don't know about it.
So this console thing seems like something they're investing in as a very viable possibility, and we could very well see Diablo 3 come to consoles. And as they've said before, it will not delay the release on PC. It's more of just if we can, let's do it type of thing.
Right, and if history repeats itself, it'll be just the way it was before with Diablo 1 appearing on the PlayStation, whereby it came out substantially after the PC version did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, especially at this point in, I think they're feeling the waters about doing a port, and my gut hunch is that this job, because it is just the one, is probably a research position. They are looking for a specialist to come in and say, all right, look over our code, look over our assets. How hard would this be to port? And then if the guy says it's like, oh yeah, this would take 6 months, we could have it out by second quarter 2012, then they'd be like, all right, let's do it. If he says no, this is like a year, 2 years worth of work, then that, I don't know, maybe rethink it, maybe scrap it, maybe say, sure, what the hell, it's another market.
Why not?
It's more like, will this game suck on console?
Pretty much.
Well, knowing Blizzard, it's like, will the quality of the game still rock? Will we own the ARPG market on the console, which consists of like 2 games currently?
And that's the thing, is it is a market. Like there is sort of a market for that. The downside of the market, like I've played some of them, Daggerdale, the old Champions of Norath games. It's not necessarily a bad thing,
Not
but
at all.
just a lot of the games for it tend to suck.
Yeah, I think of Gauntlet Legends way back when.
I had fun with
So-
Baldur's Gate playing that multiplayer with my buddy.
So if they could
Co-op.
get the interface down, then I think it would rock.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at it. I'll still be playing on PC.
Yeah, I'll be way too busy playing it on PC to even care. It could come out and I wouldn't even notice.
Exactly.
So yeah, not mad at it. Not really affected by it. Is that all we got for news?
Diablo related, yeah.
Cool. Which brings us to community feedback. Oh, we already covered that question in a previous show. Question from Jason P. How did that second Diablo from Hellfire play into the lore if he did it all. Question for Jordan. So I think he's talking about the Hellfire expansion for Diablo 1. What was his name? This is Not Cruel.
Oh yeah.
Was he in the lore at all?
Oh no. Especially since Hellfire was an unofficial expansion.
Right.
It was produced by Sierra, not Blizzard, so
Yeah,
they
Sierra.
pretty much don't acknowledge that it ever existed in any format.
So there's that.
So the answer is it doesn't.
It
It
doesn't.
doesn't work.
We also got an email from JW. His friend keeps a blog of like everything pertaining to the world of Diablo. It's mydiablocollection.wordpress.com, and he's got a lot of really obscure stuff on there. It's really cool to check out and see just all the Diablo merchandise that has been made and created over the years. I think he had like pens and Diablo pins and a lighter, I think, and just really obscure stuff. So check that out if you're
A lighter.
so inclined.
I
Yeah.
like that.
There's just-
Hellfire lighter.
Nice.
There's so much stuff on there. Pens, lighters, Dungeons and Dragons, Diablo 2 hero boxes, watches, t-shirts, rare books given out in conventions, stuff like that. But it's cool.
Wait, I didn't know. Oh wow! So D&D Minis actually put out. I know they had the Diablo 2 sort of rules thing for 3rd edition, where you could play a Diablo themed game in D&D 3rd edition.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know they actually put out a line of minis for the mini. Wow, this is crazy. This is some really obscure stuff.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Blog's pretty cool. Hop on there. This we got some feedback on the blog from The Endless Bound. All your work is infinitely appreciated. Coming home to a new podcast is like crawling into the bosom of some lusty, beefed-out powerhouse of a barbarian woman and nuzzling myself to sleep. So comforting. Keep it up.
Nice. Very descriptive.
Yeah,
I like it.
I dig it. You're welcome and thank you.
You know, just because they're barbarians, they probably do have quite the lustrous bosom.
You know it. Crush your head while they sleep. Speaking of barbarians, ... from the blog, not really Diablo related, but he just wanted to mention that there's a new trailer for the 2011 Conan the Barbarian, most recent. So yeah, we'll link to that in the show notes. But I think that's all I got for the show. Are we ready to end it?
We are. I made it through a whole show.
I know, without having to leave halfway through.
Well, it's very exciting for me.
Yes.
Nice.
Good. So, that'll do it for this week. Episode 27 next week. And we'll be going into Diablo 2 Act 4, Pandemonium Fortress, seeing what's up there. And what book are we going into next week, Jordan?
Kingdom of Shadow.
Kingdom of Shadow, which, as Jordan says, is most people's favorite. So, I look forward to that. And say goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye.
See you later.
We'll see you all next time on the World Stone Keep.